Hello everyone and welcome to the World Class Stand podcast. Our special guest today is Justin Thomas in our rugby edition. Today we're going to be talking about world-class rugby players, and we're also going to be talking about Wales and our predictions for the World Cup. But first, before we get into the episode, Steve, can you tell us more about the World Class Club?
Yep, World Class Club is our new members area, £2.99 a month. Set that up to help support us with the channel. Please use it as a donation as well, and you can cancel anytime if you wish. It also offers you early release of the episodes. So in our members area now, there are episodes available to watch. Also, there is our offer of, if you know an ex-pro, let us know. We're always looking for people to interview on the show. So if you do know somebody, give us a shout, DM us on any of our socials. And also our Q&A members area as well. So we will hand that over to our members and they can ask a question and we'll give them a shout out. So please support us.
If you like the episode, remember to like and subscribe. We'll get back to you.
Hello everyone and welcome to the World Class Stand podcast. Our special guest today is Justin Thomas. Justin, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invite, boys. Looking forward to a really fun, informative chat.
Yep.
Great stuff. So what we always ask our guests, the first question is, how do you define a world-class player? So we chatted to a lot of football ex-pros about that concept. How do you define it in a rugby concept?
I think boys I play against are sort of top of their game, world-class players, some of the best players you come across. I think those ones that perform under pressure and nail those big moments. I think you got a lot of players who are top-end players, but it's only the very best, I think, that nail the skill or nail the decision or nail a big moment in a game right at the end and under extreme pressure. For someone like Antoine Dupont, I was in Madrid Sevens with him a couple of weeks ago, and he was on fire. Like he just won the game for France, won the final for them. Just came on, changed the game, and nailed some offloads and some tackles as well. And that's when the big players, the world class, the best players in the world step up. Those big moments where they need a moment to win a game or a moment to save a game. So that's something for me that sticks out, yeah.
Is there a minimum time frame they have to be at that peak performance level? Would you say in football context, it's like 3 years, or some people say 7 years? For rugby, it's a different style of game. It's more physical, hard to maintain those high levels. For you, what is there a minimum time frame they need to be at that peak level?
Yeah, I think the best players consistently perform at that level, and they do it over a length of time. So you'll get some players that will perform at that level short term, so they might be a season or 2 seasons, and then they drop off a little bit. Whereas the world's the best of the best always seem to be, I'll have a bit of longevity to it. So you might be thinking 6 to 8 years. I think of like 2 cycles for the British Lions, for example. Those world class players, 2 cycles, they perform in 2 cycles of the Lions, or 2 cycles of the World Cup. That's when I think certain players that I played with or against, those are the sort of the players that have done it over a period of time in 2 cycles of World Cups or Lions tours of sort of 6 to 8 years.
Yeah, have you got any examples of players that are world class then? From this era and previous eras? Yeah,
I think I was really fortunate. I was sort of 19, 20, been involved down at my home club down in Llanelli. Played a lot with Ian Evans, triple British Lion. Played my first game with him. And immediately knew why he became a first-class player, because technically he was outstanding, tactically as well, his communication on field, the way he spoke to players, the way he spoke to coaches, the way he performed off the field as well and spoke. He was definitely somebody I looked up to, one of my boyhood heroes. Sort of. So yeah, I was really fortunate to come play with him really at an early age.
Yeah, he ran some tries, he did, didn't he? He was. I was watching some highlights of him, obviously in the build-up to this, and God, he was fast as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was aggressive as well on the pitch, but people didn't think, he was a real, coming back to sort of what a world-class player looks like and feels like. He's got that, players I've come across that have that sort of inner drive, they have that skill level. And I know plenty of players that haven't got that level, that had the same sort of skill level. But I think that inner drive and psychological edge, that switch I call it, is the difference I think between players playing to an international standard and players not making an international standard, and those players then going to be world class.
So decision making as well on the field, like game management.
Yeah, there's lots of players. Yeah, I'm lucky. I had an older brother who was a really, really good player. But I think psychologically there's that switch where I played my last game in a vets tournament last year. I was 50, and my competitive edge came back. I was going to be a vets tournament, charity event.
Brilliant.
You know, somebody short down me in the teeth. And then literally, like, my competitive edge came back on, and I was it. And I was like a psycho for about 2 minutes. It doesn't go away. I think you have to have an edge, especially in a contact sport like rugby, and it's brutal at the top end. You know, especially playing up front. I think you do need a bit of an edge, a switch to compete at that top level and stay at that top level. That's the hardest thing, I think.
Yeah,
it's interesting what you said about off the field stuff as well. I think just looking back to the interviews we've done, I think you're probably the first person to mention the off the field in terms of the world class bracket. So helping the youngsters, you know, around. So I think that's a good point, actually.
Yeah, being a good role model and going out and sort of go into events, go into presentation evenings. You know, if for example, you know, if a young player came along and asked you an advice, just to stop and take the moments to give them advice, or even to do some skills work with some younger players or younger clubs, and then also sort of dragging you out to do those extra sessions. Because it's quite difficult as a pro. You had so many, especially when you're being a young pro and when the game turned professional. We had an awful lot of training sessions packed into the week. So it became a real challenge to sort of where you fit in those extra bits and pieces of like speed sessions or position-specific skill sessions to fit into those extra sessions. So having a training partner to work with then and sort of have a world-class role model to look up to was really important.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, definitely.
So you rank him as Neil Jenkins? Would you rank him as world class?
Yeah, well, it was quite funny actually. We were telling a story the other day when I first got brought into the Welsh team. I was playing for Cardiff Met. I was at a charity game yesterday with Cardiff Met boys, and so I was playing for Cardiff Met in Division 3. Maybe a couple of the Tlatelolly players knew me because I played a couple of friends for Tlatelolly. So no other players in the top sort of bracket of Welsh Rugby knew who I was. So I got called into the squad, and I genuinely thought Neil Jenkins thought I was his ball boy. So I remember one Saturday morning before we played Scotland away, I was carrying his rugby balls down to the ground, and he genuinely thought I was just being his ball boy for the day. And he didn't even realise I was on the bench. You know? So yeah, he definitely was somebody I looked up to. Again, brilliant, world-class kicker. Underrated on his passing as well. World-class passer for a ball as well, could put players in a good space. And a sort of great attitude as well, that had that psychological edge.
Yeah, well, that kick against England, he's probably, I remember him for that the most. To hit the winning conversion
again,
there.
It's one of those moments. It's one of those world-class player moments. It's when those world-class players produce those moments of the pressure. I remember him as well in the Lions tour in '97. He played fullback, and he kicked this into that series and probably won the series with his goal kicking for fullback. So producing those moments under extreme pressure at the highest levels, I think works as a world-class player.
That was the South Africa tour, was it?
Yeah, '97. Yeah, brutal. The last of the brutal games, you know, before the game changed.
Yeah. We've got a few more players here. If you want to, give you a world-class sort of assumption on these players. John Olomu.
John Olomu. He's probably John Olomu's one of those freaks, though. I think that he came along. I played against him, and we were in Hong Kong Sevens in 1996, and we had a decent Sevens team. And we trained all week, and it's really humid in Hong Kong. It's really hard. So we were fed up at training. So the coach got us a warm-up game on a Wednesday, so the tournament started on the Friday. And he said, "Oh, we're playing. We're all really excited to play. We all wanted to play." And he said, "Oh, I've got a warm-up game against the All Blacks." And I'm like, "Oh, no."
A warm-up against the All Blacks. Doesn't sound like it.
95, Loom would come on to see 95 World Cup. He was at the heights of his powers. Yeah. This was March 96. He was playing prop, unbelievably. Wow. So he scored a hat-trick first half. We just couldn't tackle him. His legs, there were three of us jumping on him.
Tree trunks.
Yeah, well, he was 6'5", he's 19 stone, he'd run 11 second 100. So people didn't realise he could run. He's probably one of the fastest players at that time on the planet, playing international rugby. So when he got going, he was really difficult to pull down.
Train.
He was a train crash. And he went off half time then, and he couldn't even get in the back line. They had a boy. They had a man on the wing called Vindiri. He was like his nickname was Silverback Gorilla, and he would run 11 second 100 as well. And he picked up Gareth Thomas. Gareth Thomas was running down the touchline once in this game, and Vindiri picked him up and threw him in a touch. And I was running inside him going, Jesus Christ, he's picked up Gareth Thomas, who's a big guy. Yeah. Just throwing him in a touch. It was for middle, and then Christian Cullen came on. Second half, Lumo went off, Cullen came on, and it was unbelievable to play against those standard players.
This strength and depth over there has always been
amazing.
Absolutely
amazing.
Fantastic.
I did a trip 4 years ago. My mates live in New Zealand, So I spent 10 days over there trialing around, watching the rugby, going to club training sessions, going to sort of regional 16 training sessions as well and watching them. And yeah, the skill level and the level of coaching they get at that age, yeah, outstanding. I can see how they churn out probably 3 or 4 players at a world class at each position over there. Because the coaching they get at 16s and below is really high standard.
Yeah, there's some great players at the moment. Finn Russell for Scotland. He's
on fire, transformed Bath as well, taking Bath to new levels as well. So he's one of those players who's he's a love-hate one, isn't he, for a coach? But he's definitely somebody as a coach you want to have in your team because he can produce those match-winning moments. Don't worry, he's going to make mistakes. He's going to make mistakes, so he'll try the craziest of skills. But most of the time, the best players, those skills will come off. His goal kicking's improved as well. His game management has improved over the last couple of years. Well, but he's still got that magic moment to win you a game. And those are the things players and supporters and coaches remember, those sort of magic moments that those best players can produce under pressure.
Yeah, definitely. It's a few other we got. Will Jordan.
Yeah, I've written down. I could ask you a few. But we're going to get through a few.
I was just thinking of some of the players today. Is there any others that stand out for you as world class
at the moment playing today?
For currently playing. Yeah,
I think there's quite a few. There's a lot of French team have got quite a few. Bowden Barrett or the Barrett brothers. You look at the Irish team. There's a lot of young players coming through there, or back row hookers.
Tad Furlong, is it?
So there's loads. You watch him sidestep on YouTube, and he scored that try. He's offloading the back door now. So some of the skills, some of the international players that have been coached and encouraged to play now is really exciting to watch. I think the game is evolving. I think coaches are starting to sort of try and play a faster, more exciting offload game as sort of the laws change, if you like. So I think the standard of rugby is definitely going up. I think the speed of play and the ball in play time's going up. So, I think it's really exciting to see in the next cycle of 4 years World Cup is how coaches now upskill players. So, you take Tide Furlong, for example, with his skill level, sized him offloading. And the younger players coming through now having higher skill levels. Yesterday, watching Wales play, Wales had lots of young players coming yesterday, it's good to see those young players. Rio Dyer playing on the wing, really exciting player. Aaron Wainwright, again, number 8. So there's lots of young players there, hopefully, that are starting. Hopefully we get exposure to come through, and hopefully we'll have Wales players in 4 years that will be open in the next cycle of World Cup. We'll be up there and we'll be known as world-class players. Lions tour now coming up, so...
they're always... good to watch those Lion tours.
And that's where players can make their mark and make those moments their own. So excited to see how the Six Nations goes next year, because that's going to be the make or break for players, is how well they play in the Six Nations next year, and then obviously getting picked for that Lions tour. Yeah,
that leads nicely on to the next question, actually. Warren Gatland returned to Wales manager. Disappointing Six Nations, first wooden spoon in 21 years. He's starting again, rebuilding job. Like you say, you've got lots of exciting players coming through. What is kind of like realistic expectations for Warren Gatland, and where can he kind of take this current group of players coming up, towards Lions and eventually gearing up towards the World Cup?
I think he's done a good job so far. He's inherited a young and old team, so he's trying to bleed a lot of those young players in. A lot of those Six Nations games we lost, some of them were quite tight, and those come down to moments again. If you've got young players are going to make mistakes. And under that extreme pressure, it's quite difficult to replicate that international pressure in club matches. So all those boys would have found it hard to step up. And the pace of the game is quicker. The decision-making has to be quicker. So I think it does take time for young players to understand the level of preparation they need to perform under pressure in those big games. And I think it will take time. I think he's on the right path. I think he has made the right decisions to bring in young players. It's difficult if you bring in too many young players at once that you haven't got that experience around them to help out. Yesterday, we did a lot of young players on the pitch. And you can see in those big moments, we struggled a little bit. But I think the boys will be better players for that going forward. I think it's a great idea to go on a tour to Australia this year. Hard grounds, fast open play. I think another opportunity for the young players to feel the pressure of international rugby, go away, spend a month on tour, train every day, get to know, build up bonds with players, have the analysis with players, build up coach relationships. I think that'll put us in good stead. I think for the next Six Nations cycle, and then potentially moving forward into potentially some of those younger players getting the opportunity to go on Lions tour, and then obviously 2 years out off the Lions tour, then hopefully building a pack of forwards first of all that can compete at international level, and then finding some backs that can finish things off or carry ball over gain line for us. So I'm excited to see Mason Grady, how he goes to 12. I think we need somebody at 12 who potentially, if the forwards are having a tough day up front, and I think he can come and become a world-class centre for us.
Yeah.
Given time to sort of bed in and feel a bit of pressure at 12. So yeah, I'm excited to see all those young players develop. We've got a lot of young talent in Wales.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you say, the South Africa game, and obviously going on to Australia, building blocks are being put in place to give these young players like tough tests to start off with. So when it comes on having to call upon these experiences later down in the career, maybe 4 years down the line, they can call back to the time where they're in the trenches together. So
they kept it close at one stage, and obviously the experience told, and they ran away. Like we said, we didn't have as much experience on the pitch. I think Josh Adams was out yesterday, Anscombe, Falatau. So but like we said, you've got to start somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah, and you've got to expose the next players underneath. We've got to build some depth. We've got a massive pool of players in Wales. Yeah, and there's a lot of players that are young players that come through. I've done a lot of age grade coaching, and I would say we've got some of the best players in the UK at age grade under 18. Some real talented players, real good coaching goes on under 18 as well. It's just how we build that then. So and bring them through. So when they're 20, 21, they're ready to play. Like Cam Wanetter's done a great job at fullback for us. Young player again in a difficult position. So I think we've got to keep exposing those young players and find out those players that psychologically can deal with that pressure and deal with the pressures of being an international rugby player, being away from home a lot. That's a difficult thing. They're going away for a month to Australia. So that's the whole experience of being a successful world-class player, is being able to deal with that well as well.
Do you think there's a few reasons, or a reason why, like you say, if they are at that level, at that age, why maybe, consistently they don't get to those levels as a senior?
I think a lot of it comes down to psychological. I remember doing some sessions with Cam when he was younger. We were doing skill sessions on Saturday morning, and Cam's from up the Rhondda, and something small like I seen a player where he jumped on a bus on Saturday morning from Rhondda to Cardiff, pouring down rain, absolutely pouring down rain all Saturday morning. Jumped on a bus from the centre of Cardiff to get to Whitchurch Rugby Club, walked, did the session, and then made his way home back to Cardiff. I think that tells you a lot about a player, the motivation and the drive he has to want to get to the top. I don't think we always get that in Wales. I think we lose players along the way in Wales a little bit. They get, maybe distracted by things that are happening around them at 18. They don't always make it to the top. But I think there's a good batch of young players coming through that having good support at 18 to keep them focused and focused on sort of long-term goals, so 4-year long-term goals, and getting one professional contract, playing regional rugby, and then once in the regional window, then things can happen really quickly. Look at Jacob Beetham yesterday getting his first cap. You look at a few of the young boys come on yesterday as well. 12 months ago, 2 years ago, they were playing under 18 age grade rugby. Yeah, it can happen quickly in Wales because we've got a quite small pool of players.
I agree there.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so WRU central contracts. There's a new 25 cap on it. What's your general feeling around all of that? Is it good? Is it bad?
I was one of the first players back in '96 that had the central contract, and it definitely did help. Because we can remember is the regions will have slightly different ways of trying to develop players to maybe the union might have. So I'm a big fan of having players centrally contracted. I think if you can have one boss and one view on how you see, or the coach sees you going forward as a player, I think if you keep the messages simpler, I think one will be able to maybe develop those players a little bit quicker. We'll be able to manage their time on field and what they need best. I think the new semi-pro league that's happening, Super Rugby Cymru is going to help. I think it's going to give players more exposure to play at maybe slightly higher level potentially in a couple of years' time. I think they're going to get more game time. When I speak to all the young players who are regional players, 18 to 20, a lot of them want to play. A lot of them at the moment are not getting as many game times. We've seen sport a couple of players who've maybe only played maybe 8 to 10 games this year. They want to play 20 games a year. They want to play at that age. So I think having centrally contracted players, I think, will help that because it'll reduce the top end Wales players, maybe the older players, how many games they play, which will then hopefully help give those younger players underneath more game time. And I think maybe in 2 years' time, I think we'll start to see the benefits of that.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that they've reduced, I'm sure it was around 60 caps previously. It's now gone down to 25 caps, and you can start playing in like the English league or the French league. It must be tricky for the players because obviously you got opportunity to earn much more money by going abroad. I say abroad to France or to England, and then is on the flip side of it is like if if all your players are going in playing into the foreign leagues, then there can be issues on releasing players for international duty, not releasing them with enough time for preparation and everything. So it is a bit of a balance. What are your thoughts on that side of things where, players playing into different leagues, financially for the players, it might suit them, but obviously for development.
Really difficult one because it's a short career.
Exactly, yeah.
And the players have got to look after themselves first and foremost because at the end of the day, they've got to try and make some money so they're financially stable for their lives, if you like, because you only want one injury away really from retirement.
One bad tackle.
One big tackle, one really bad collision, concussion, for example. So you can't really blame the players. I see where the union are coming from with the 25 cap rule. I think, I'm growing up, I went to watch Slechy, I was on the terraces watching my role models playing, and that pushed me on to want to play for Wales. So I think we have to have role models in Wales for the young players. I think that's a massive thing. So it's not a big country. We haven't got a lot of teams. I think we need some of our best young players playing in Wales, so they're role models for the next batch of sort of 11, 12, 13-year-olds looking up to those players. But I definitely think at some point as well, the 25 cap rule is a good balance, I think, between players being able to stay in Wales, but also players being allowed to go away and play. One, to experience different cultures, and to come back then potentially better players. If you look back sort of 10 years ago, there was a lot of players that went away to play in France, and they definitely came back as better players. Stephen Jones went away to play a couple of seasons in France. John Davis went to France as well, came back definitely a more experienced player.
Different style of play, I guess, as well.
Yeah, and you have different, because you have different styles, you play in different conditions, weather conditions. Yeah. It does help you as an older player then take those experiences back to the younger players. And I think it does long term make Wales produce maybe better coaches. They've got all those players transitioning from playing into coaching. I think having those players then go away and coming back with those different experiences of different countries, I think will help them be better coaches. I think will definitely help them give different and better experiences to the younger players, and which hopefully will make them better players at international level in Wales. I don't see it as a bad thing. I see the balance of wanting to keep role models in Wales. Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that. You definitely got to keep your stars in Wales if you can. It pushes the game on in the long run, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think part of that as well, the contracted part of the 25 cap rule is looking after players long term. It's not just the playing part of it. It's how you connect those players with mentors. So it might be them starting to go off to do a university course part time. It might be them going off to do work experience in their downtime, because there's only so many sessions you can do in a week. You're not going to train harder on a Friday. So if you go half day on a Fridays, then finding something else outside rugby. So it could be work experience with a firm, an accountancy, with a law, whatever you want to get into, finances. So you feel like you have something in Wales to keep you here as well, and you have that career after it. Because again, one injury away, one back concussion, comes to an end. You might be playing for 6 years, and then you've got to go and find something else. You've got to find potentially doing for 35 years now.
There's no generational wealth, is there, with rugby per se?
So I think that's a key part of it as well, is the well-being and the picture outside rugby and what career can build. I think that's we can do that well in Wales, because it's quite a small country. There are lots of people around the areas that would love the opportunity to work with regional young Welsh players and have them attached to their firms or their companies to be role models for them as well.
Well, talking of contract changes and young players, there's been one high-profile move, not to rugby itself, but NFL. Rees-Zammit to the Kansas City Chiefs as a running back. What do you make of that? And do you think it will, obviously it's good for him financially? Yeah. How do you think it'll play out?
Absolutely brilliant.
But do you think he'll be back?
I was super excited when I saw it break. I think it's brilliant for him. He said he grew up with the NFL. His father was a big NFL fan. She's grown up with all those role models. if somebody comes along and gives you an opportunity to go away to America and try out, a sport you've loved and watched all your life, you're going to bite his hand off. So I am super excited. I think if he'll get an opportunity, I think he'll rip it up. I've seen clips of him in training, and he's beating people. He's beating people on the pitch, one-on-one, on rugby pitches, He's gonna have guards running with him, taking plays out for him. So he's gonna. I think if he gets a bit of space, I think he's coming back as a return kicker. Is he running back?
Running back, yeah.
So I think he's gonna rip it up. I think he's gonna beat people. I think he's gonna surprise people.
He's rapid, isn't he?
Yeah, I'll be there watching the first game when he gets his first start. I think that my son is loving it as well. Similar sort of age. Yeah, he's super excited. I think he's gonna rip it up, and I sincerely hope he does. Because if he can go there and make a career out of it for say 4 seasons, and then maybe want to come back and do another cycle of maybe with Wales and then potentially Lions as well. Good for him. Brilliant.
That's it, isn't it? It doesn't mean the door's shut, does it? He could go over there, like you say. Depending on how it goes, he can always come back over.
Yeah, he's been back this week. He's been in the Taylor Swift concert.
Was he?
Wembley, is he?
Come back for a big tattoo as well, isn't it? I think I saw him in the
good for him. He's short. It's an 8-hour plane ride, and he's got family over here, your friends over here. He'll be back and forth. Great for Wales, great exposure for Wales as well. Great for him. And great for Welsh rugby as well. He's taking Welsh rugby into America now.
Puts Wales on the map as well, doesn't it?
Do you think there's a bit of a risk, though, with all the stuff we've just talked about, that door is going to become wider for other players to do the same thing and maybe kind of downbeat a little bit?
I think he's fortunate. I think he's super switched on here. And I think he understood at a young age that he needed to be as fast as he could. Yeah. And I think he saw that. And I'd done the sprint training to understand that. So when he started playing rugby, I went to Hartbury. He was quick and then got quicker. Yeah. And got good people around him to help him get quicker. He went off to America to do the extra sprint coaching. So I think he's had good people around him. He's had good advice, which has allowed him to thrive as a winger. It's going to be much more difficult if you're probably a forward to transition, into NFL. Sure, yeah. I think because he's so quick, especially over that first 30 meters, and he's got that agility and ability to beat people. I think it's been easy for him to transition. I don't think that'll be easy for other players to do that. Okay,
so you don't think it's going to be a mass exodus of players?
I think potentially there might be a few people overlooking in Wales and going, there might be some athletes out there that think, I need to get quicker. Yeah. So it's certainly something that if you look at sort of Rio Dyer, you look at the Welsh wingers, they're quick, they're running sort of sub-11. But I think the difference with him is he's running 10-4. So and that's taking him to the next level and giving him the opportunity to get into that sport.
Yeah, Reese Lightning is his new nickname over there, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but it's also speed of movement. See, what he's got is he's got speed of movement on his feet, his agility.
Yeah, flexible hips.
He's worked on that in that rugby background. So I think that's what probably has made him stand out, is his ability to beat players.
Yeah, I hope he does well.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to one of the more kind of high profile things that's going on in the game at the minute was tackling in the game and to the high risk of impacts of head injuries and things. What are your thoughts on what can be done to? It's hard to make things safe in this kind of arena.
Yeah, it's a real difficult one. Yeah, I've had been concussed a few times and hospitalised and things, but I was speaking to some of my friends yesterday, sort of similar age, and if we could do it again, we'd do it again in a heartbeat. The experiences we had through rugby has been phenomenal. I think you accept that as a player when you play. I think as players have got stronger, fitter, and faster, the game's sort of become more power-based game. Mm-hmm. My son is actually retired from playing rugby from concussions. He's transitioning to coaching now. So, you get to a point where I think some players are unlucky with the amount of contact and concussions they have. And the other players then will go through their career where they don't pick up those heavy knocks or the injuries. But I think the big picture is, as a player, what you get into play a contact sport. And it's a great game. And it gives you so much, not just yourself, you become also a rugby family. And you have so many experiences traveling the world and seeing different experiences. I think World Rugby are doing a good job of trying to make it a little bit safer now. They're trying to change things around the contact area, around tackle height. They're trying to bring in there's new research out there, and there's been a new concussion headgear coming out that hopefully is going to reduce the potential for concussions. I don't think you're ever going to make any of the games, contact sports, safe.
Yeah.
If you look at football, there's going to be concussions in football. Players removed from the pitch. I think as time goes by, I think research will give us new ideas and will help to make any contact sport safer. I think, potentially, there's a problem going back periodically, maybe 10 years ago, where potentially some of the medical information, players received could have been a bit better and a bit more accurate. But again, there wasn't that much research out there at that point. So, I think there are issues, and I think World Rugby have got to look at it and keep making the game safer for parents to understand it as well. So education for parents, educating coaches as well. So, understanding symptoms on the pitch, removing players from the pitch, not putting them back on once they've had maybe a concussion or a knock. They're off and they stay off. They get medical care, and they get that. They get the real return to play protocols put in place. I think that's really important at a junior level. That they get those protocols in place at each club or school, that players are really well looked after, and make sure they return to play at the right time.
As a player, are you thinking about that type of thing when you're playing the game? Because I can imagine if you've got that sort of even 1% thought in your head of, this could happen, that could happen. It's going to take something at your game, isn't it? So is it helpful for, I'm not saying it's not helpful, but that's the wrong word, but there's a lot of noise around it, obviously. Do you think it's going to reduce a little bit of the, that mentality in players, maybe? I
think a lot has come back to coaches. Coaches being educated on it. I think if you look back to sort of rugby pre-2000, if you look at the breakdown, the tackle area, it was brutal. People flying in off their feet. It was seen as a free shot. You can go there physically to a breakdown and hurt somebody, get them off the pitch. I think coach education now has helped that way. Was now the coaches are sort of looking at the breakdown area a little bit different. They're trying maybe not to send 3 or 4 players in. They're trying to educate players on, is there an opportunity to win the ball? And if there's an opportunity to win the ball, we'll go to the breakdown and we will smash it and try and turn the ball over. So I think there's better coaching around the breakdown area. I think that's where a lot of the big collisions that cause injuries happen, mainly, especially with shoulder contact onto head, especially with some of the big forwards. No, I don't think you can go on the field though thinking that. I think players who do go on the field and think that generally are the ones that get injured because they go in soft. I think you've just got to, it's contact sport, and you've got to prep yourself for contact. And
trust the coaches, like you say.
100%. And I have those discussions with the coaches. The coaches don't know everything. We don't know everything. There are players who are playing now who will be the next sort of line of coaches. So they're educated, they're intelligent players. So have conversations with those players and build a rapport to try and limit those injuries, to limit those, maybe the dangerous tackles or the dangerous contacts into the breakdown. Because then the coach doesn't want to play it off the field. If you can see if a team gets a red card, it can have a big impact on an outcome of a game. So
do you think it'll be mandatory for every player to wear headgear at some stage?
Hopefully not. I don't think. I think it might become mandatory to have potentially the chipped mouth guards. There's mouth guards that are chipped that are monitoring the level of force that the head is receiving from tackles and contacts and things. So, and if it goes above a level, then you get pulled off and checked. I think that's probably a good option. Headgear, I'm not as a player. Wasn't a big fan of headgear. Being a fullback of staff, comms and communication and listening to calls on the pitch is quite a big part of the game. And if you're wearing headgear, I think sometimes that can disrupt that. Some people feel comfortable wearing headgear, some people don't. My son wore headgear, and he just felt invincible when he wore the headgear. Well, that's why he picked up a lot of concussions. So we immediately said, head guard off, and then he became more sensible with his tackling. So I think it's 2 sides to that, really.
It's interesting, I know.
Do you think maybe in training you could have more padded gear? Because you could have, obviously, it's all about the technique for the tackle, isn't it? But obviously in training you can catch a stray knee to the face or something like that. Do you think if you made training a bit more safe to take the amount of times that the impacts occur, because obviously, you know, you're training, it's not just a match day where obviously that's going to be high risk, but, you know, training, especially international as well, competitive, everyone wants to play.
Yeah, so there's new guidance out there now that's sort of international, regional coaches only have a certain amount of contacts in the week leading up to a game. Okay. So that's reduced. So the players in the World Rugby have got together and said, right, let's reduce the number of contacts. We have a short 10-minute contact block, and that'll limit the, and a lot of the contact tackling stuff, technical coaching now is done with padding. So you'll see on large crash mats, you'll see players holding contact pads. So the technique around safe tackle technique for full-time pros, there's a lot of extra padding being used. It's more controlled. It's a lot more around a good technique now. The difficult part happens when, especially if you're playing on the wing, centre, or fullback, is when you're traveling at pace and there's a late change of direction. You'll see a lot with fullbacks and wingers where they sometimes get their head in the wrong position, so they get their head in front of the knees. And there's not a massive amount you can do about that, because if a player's got a late change of direction, then you've got to change direction late, and then potentially your head does go in the wrong position, and sometimes you do get that knees to the head. There's not a lot you can do about that, really, because it is an invasion game. It's high speed, high contact.
And that's part of being a great winger or a fullback, is you're trying to out-juke your man and, you know, send him the wrong direction. So those like last-minute adjustments are always going to just happen as part of the game.
Yeah. And as a coach, that's all you can do is practice those scenarios as much as possible. Yeah. So the players can get in the right position at the most time. So if you practice those late change of direction tackles as much as you can, then potentially you're reducing the risk of head contact. Plus, hopefully, you're producing players that have more successful tackles in that situation as well.
Yeah. Okay, so the next topic. Can't really get away from this kind of concept in a few sports when you look around, but the future of club rugby and potential Anglo-Welsh League and possibly Scottish and Irish clubs as well. Say it's happening in other sports as well. There's constant chat around this kind of concept, isn't there, of amalgamation?
I'm a big advocate of this. I was fortunate when I was playing in Cardiff in 1997. We played in the Breakaway League. We didn't play in the Welsh League. We played all the English clubs. And it was, one for the player, it was really exciting. If you go back to some of the biggest games in Welsh rugby, club rugby, it's always when sort of the clubs play Bath, the clubs come down and play Leicester's, the Worlds. The stadiums would be sold out. So the Arms Park would have 12,000 people there. You know, think Bath, Cardiff, European Cup, sold out. You know, brilliant atmosphere, probably the best atmosphere played in a club game in Wales. I'm a massive supporter of that happening. I think that would be brilliant for not only Welsh rugby and getting the crowds back in, but also British rugby. I think the standard of play will go up. It was definitely a higher standard of rugby. So when I started playing sort of Welsh top level rugby, club rugby, there was a massive gulf between the intensity of club rugby and then playing international. It was well, you couldn't compare it. The European games, those Wales, England sort of club European matches were much higher level and much closer to international rugby. So it did prepare you a little bit better for that level of intensity that you needed to get to play international rugby. And I think it'd be better for supporters. I think the clubs will produce more revenue. I think long term the Welsh players will play at a higher level, so I think it'll increase our level as well. Playing international as well. So if that happened next week, I'd be super impressed and super pleased.
Kind of like a cricket model, IPL type, best v the best. Is it that type of thing?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's difficult because you've got short-term contracts with the cricket.
Yeah.
The difficult part with rugby is you've got 10-month contracts, and the play season is 10 months. I think players in the UK get a slightly more harder deal of it because the season is 10 months, whereas in New Zealand, if I've seen this week, a lot of the All Black players have gone back to play for the clubs. So their season is really short. It's like a 3-month regional block with them, and then they go back and play for the club, and then they have 3 months off. So it's different models in Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. I think the players in Northern Hemisphere, especially in the UK, play a lot more games. It's a longer season. So, I do away with the club rugby information and have that one Anglo-Welsh Super League, condense it into 6 months for players, play at a higher level.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, like what you touched on there, where you talked about the levels difference between club rugby and international rugby. You can tell by watching, like, international rugby is always much more exciting because you can tell as a spectator that it's a higher level compared to club rugby. And I think that you're right. If there was like an Anglo-Welsh league, or even have the Irish and Scottish guys in as well, then it would lift the levels and it'd be more entertaining. And there's always that bit of needle as well, isn't it, between the Welsh and the English? It's a bit more exciting.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
For the fans, I think, like you say, yeah, you're right. And even for television deals as well, I think I would improve, the marketability of those games. So yeah, definitely, I think it's probably the only way it can go, really, without it diluting the sport, I think.
Yeah, I think it should happen before this time. Like you said, is that old rivalry day as well. And let's be honest, the English Premiership, the crowds they get are just unbelievable, aren't they, in the big games.
Yeah,
so,
Bath away, sold out. All the teams are sold out. So I think it's getting to a point now with England, they're struggling. Some of the clubs are struggling, so we've seen a couple no longer with us. I think financially, as more financial difficult times happen, I think we will get people around the table. I think those conversations for Anglo-Welsh or Anglo-Scottish leagues will happen. Fingers crossed. That'd be brilliant to watch. I would definitely get a season ticket, go and watch those big games.
At the end of the day, you got to bring money in, haven't you? Bring revenue in. Otherwise,
and that's the thing as well. But I suppose previously, it was more beneficial for the Welsh sides to join the English teams. Now, with like some of the demise of the English clubs, like London Irish and a few others, you're seeing that actually we might need to join forces together and create a better product. So yeah, I think it's more on the cards now than it's ever been.
Yeah, and you could have two tiers. So you could take the Irish teams, the Scottish teams, you could take the 10 English teams in the Prem, take the 4 regions, and you could have two leagues. You could have the top 10 in from a league. You could have promotion and relegation in between as well.
Yeah,
I think it could work really well.
Yeah,
I think players will be super excited for playing that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, another thing that rugby seems to get right is the video ref, TMO.
Yeah.
Compared to football, at least, it seems to work. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's been brilliant. I think it's given the supporters a really good insight into it as well, into not only sort of another edge of excitement, but also I think understanding of the laws of rugby as well. Because you see a lot of supporters shout the referee.
Yeah.
It's good to see hear the team speaking to the referee, so you can see what they're discussing.
Yeah.
So I think it does bring an extra level of drama, excitement. I feel so. If I'm watching a game with some younger boys I'm coaching, I go, I didn't know that rule. Oh yeah, he's held the ball up. So I think it's been a real injection of scrutiny for the referees, because I think it has improved the level of refereeing. Because I think they've had to be better, because they're now scrutinized by a TMO, and no ref wants to get it wrong. It's been exciting for the TMOs, the referees. I got a friend who's does all the video clips for the TMO, so he's got a career of it.
Great.
Goes around all the best stadiums in the UK and Europe. Also, I think the players are given a new level of respect, I think, to the referee. Mm-hmm. They don't shout the referee as much. So the referee now goes to TMO. They didn't make a decision, and the players respect the ref's decision, the TMO's decision. So, yeah, I think all around it's been a really positive move for rugby, and an extra level of scrutiny, I think, for everybody that I think everybody found enjoyable, I think.
Yeah, I think for me, the one thing, or where rugby gets it right over football, is the transparency element of it. The referee's mic'd, so the crowd can hear, and at home, they can view it on the screen, and the players instantly know where they are. Whereas football, it's more like, go away, I'm making a decision. Rugby, there seems to be more of that constant conversation with the referees. It's like, oh, what's going on here? And it's respectful conversation.
Yeah.
And then once they've made the decision, then that's it. And they accept the decision a bit more.
And I think they've improved it, because when they first brought it in, it took too long, and it took the excitement and buzz out of the game. I think they've improved it as it's gone along, and they've made questions a lot quicker, and they've got answers a lot quicker. So the flow of the game is not lost. And I think that's been a really good development as well.
You're right. Yeah, actually, you're right there. With the questions, they're more succinct, and is it a try, yes or no?
Yeah.
Getting to that point is just, it eliminates the kind of the vague nature of the decision making.
Especially at the top end now, top end. If you've got a try no try situation, and that's one of the games. So you look at Scotland back in the Six Nations. One of the TMO decisions went there, didn't go their way, and they lost the game, and that's massive for Scotland. Yeah, the potentially that could be, if a coach is on a losing streak, that's potentially his job. So I think I think we're not quite there yet. I don't think we're getting everything right. But I think it has made things a lot better.
Yeah, with that system as well, the ref is still allowed to ref the game the way the ref wants to ref the game. If you're holding on or you think you're pushing up to offside, the ref still makes those decisions. But what I think rugby does is when there's like a line decision, did the ball cross the line, yes or no? Was it out of touch? Were they offside where the kicker was going from up and under? Yeah. That's when it's perfect.
I think the VAR thing is the ref's got to stop the game. Then he's got to refer it. Then he's got to jog across the halfway line to a little TV. You can't hear what they're saying, so you don't really trust what they,
It's time as well as
and it's just lose a bit of momentum in the game and a bit of excitement comes out of the game. So I think they'll get there. I think they need to shorten down the VAR timescales. I think the ref does need to have accountability and make a decision. Yeah, and they just check the decision and get on with it.
Yeah, rugby allows the ref to still ref.
Yeah, because the ref will say, try or no try. Well, it's try on field, check for me.
Yeah.
Sensible. It's just been sensible about it.
One couple of words that were mentioned, respect. I mean, we might need a whole new podcast episode of this, but coming from a rugby player, what is it with that? There's just the utmost respect for officials in rugby from what I see, and very, very little in football. From the upbringing of playing the game.
It's upbringing. Right. Yeah, it's upbringing. I'm a school teacher, right? So I will take a group of under 15 boys to do rugby. So we'll do a rugby activity, right, for 6 weeks. Not a problem. So I'll referee them, not a problem. They'll ask me questions, they will. And I'll explain to them, not a problem. We'll then change activities and then go into football. And then the behaviours will change and what they've seen from their role models when they watch football. Yeah. And all of a sudden, they will argue with every decision I make because they're doing a football activity, because that's what they see on the TV. And that's the thing. It's role models. Is how they're brought up with their coaches, with their parents. I was taught up in West Wales. You respect your elders. You respect the referee's decision. Yes, you can ask them a question, but you never go into a referee's face. You're always sir. Speak to the referee as sir. There's that line of respect. I think that needs to definitely improve in football.
100%.
And it was quite funny. When I did that in school, I said, right, so I'll have a yellow card in my rugby sessions. But I kept the yellow card for my football sessions. I sin bin them for 10 minutes. So I sent them off in the sin bin.
How'd that work?
10 minutes, off you went. I said, what, you're going to sin bin for 10 minutes? I said, yeah, I'm sin bin, off you go. Back to the referee.
Were they better?
And eventually, they got better then because there was consequences.
Yeah. And the other team obviously.
Yeah, the problem got it in you see on football games on TV. There's no consequence. The referee might yellow card a player. Well, sometimes you saw Mbappe go back on the field. Yeah, last week.
Just one free hit,
It's just a free hit because he got a yellow card. Yeah. There's no consequence there. But if he got sim bins and his team had to go down to 10 men for 10 minutes, the coach would then step in and go, right, hold on a minute now. And people start scoring goals in those 10 minutes, like they do in rugby. There's a consequence to the coach. Yeah. The coach will then start picking the players up on it. So the standards and role models sort of look after itself a bit then.
It does kind of police itself that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, 100%.
I can't see football ever going that way. Don't know why, but
well, I've trialed it in my lessons and it does work.
Yeah. So get an advisory role with the FAW.
Yeah. Well, what they can do is so you might take it in the 16 league and you can trial it in a local in the 16 league.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then see what the feedback is from the players, from the supporters, from the referees, and then take it forward from there and then take it to the next level. So take it into, for example, National League. Take it into a National League, try it out. Because that's what I think World Rugby do that really well, is they'll trial new laws and things in different leagues first. And if it's seen to be positive outcome, then they'll try it at the next level up and then they'll eventually bring it in. So, for example, there's new laws being trialled in the World's 20s World Cup now. It's happening this month. And if that's successful, they'll bring it into the next level of international rugby. So there's ways of doing it.
They do it the reverse in football, don't they? They just bang straight into the Premier
World
League.
Cup,
anything.
Yeah.
It's,
That's true.
And you can get the viewpoints of the players, the referees, the supporters, the parents even.
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, if this is a positive, then great, you've got the evidence there then.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so moving on to Rugby World Cup 2027. Obviously, we've got the Lions tour, so maybe we can touch on that as well. Yeah, how do you see the Rugby World Cup go in Australia? So obviously it'll be Southern Hemisphere. And can anyone from the Northern Hemisphere have a chance of winning it in Australia this time around?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a big opportunity for Australia. They're on the Lions tour there, so they're going to get potentially a little bit of momentum off that. I went to the Lions tour 2013, first test Brisbane. I couldn't believe how massive NRL was. And a lot of those players focus on NRL rather than rugby union. And rugby union is sort of seen to be sort of a more schoolboy thing. So I think it's a big opportunity for Australia now to host a Lions tour, to get a bit of momentum going for that World Cup as well. So because it needs to be successful for them as well. You need the home nation be having successful in a World Cup. Because they're losing a lot of players in Australia. A lot of players are going into NRL rather than rugby union. Rugby league, so yeah, it'd be good for us, I think, because it'll be hopefully on hard grounds. It'll suit maybe more of the Southern Hemisphere teams to start with. I think they're on a new cycle. I think Ireland are going to start on a new cycle. There are a lot of older players maybe are going to be retiring. Might not be available in 4 years' time, so they start on a new cycle. Scotland are starting to get some momentum going with a new team, so they've been together for 18 months. They're improving. Wales are starting on a new cycle of players, so they're going to take a couple of years probably to sort of get some momentum going, I would suspect. England are on a new cycle as well. So I think the good thing is that they're giving new players and younger players opportunities.
Yeah.
And you'll always pick up young players that will come through and will suit international rugby. I think it's a good opportunity for us to close the gap potentially on the Southern Hemisphere teams. I think France, England, you have the South Africa, New Zealand teams will always be up there.
Yeah.
They've got a massive amount of players. Our player base is huge compared to ours. So I think we'll always in Wales be trying to catch up those teams because we have a small pool of players. So we've always got to try and put as much detail in as possible. But yeah, I think if we can develop players and expose them to enough international rugby and play under pressure at a young age, I think in two years' time, hopefully we'll have a good batch of British players going over to Australia to experience it with the Lions. I think that experience then will help them maybe in 4 years' time at the World Cup. Yeah, so yeah, we definitely got opportunities to get there.
Yeah, there's a breathing space there, isn't it?
We should always target the quarterfinal of the World Cup. We should always get Wales get out of the pool, target the quarterfinals. And then quarterfinals is down to knockout rugby. And then it comes back to those world-class moments, doesn't it? Yeah. It's the goal kickers. It's winning line-outs in pressure situations. It's those big moments of drop goal, for example. Like that moment in the European Cup final this year when Leinster had an opportunity to win the cup with a drop goal. And then unfortunately missed. If he'd have kicked it, he'd been hero. Leinster would have won. Yeah. Then they're talking about Leinster have lost the URC. They haven't won the European Cup. So it's almost turning, bringing in new young players now. So it comes down to those big moments and those taking those moments again.
2003, England.
Yeah,
huge moment.
2003, and that moment. Yeah, and
Johnny wanted to say.
You have to get that in, Steve. You have to get that in.
But it's practicing those moments under pressure. That's the key part of it. Yeah. Doing the work before you get there.
Exactly.
What about the frequency of the World Cup? It's not like football where you got like the World Cup and then the European Championships, which you can alternate. I know you've got the Lions tour in there. Do you think to grow the game, because they're obviously expanding the tournament now? I think there's 24 teams going into the next Rugby World Cup. Do you think they could increase the World Cup frequency, or maybe even have a Northern Hemisphere tournament, just to kind of get that international football, international rugby, just a bit more out there, help grow the sport?
I think the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere ideas got some legs in it. I think the difficult part with World Rugby are trying to expand the game across different countries. So they're having 24 countries in the next World Cup, which is brilliant to see. The problem is that it's taken them an awful long time, a lot of funding, a lot of coaches from World Rugby going over to those and spend a lot of time in those countries to bring those standard of play up in those countries. We're probably looking at probably 12 years cycle to get those
It took
teams
Japan
at a standard.
about 20 years, didn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So, you know, I remember sort of 95 World Cup with Ivory Coast there. It takes a long time to get enough good coaches into those places to get them to play at a high enough level to get them to a World Cup standard. Because nobody wants to see somebody losing by 100 points in a World Cup. No. You know, 95 World Cup, New Zealand beat Japan 120 odd points. Nobody wants to see that. So you want World Cups to be competitive. To do that, you've got to give those smaller countries of lower play numbers time to sort of develop.
Yeah.
I think
America is an obvious one, right?
Yeah, 100%. You know, and that's slowly snowballing now. So you can see with their sevens team are starting to be really successful now. It's going to take a bit more time for them as well. You know, if you look at the teams that qualified from outside of the traditional tier 1 teams, you know, America missed out. You know, Portugal have qualified. Yeah. You know, so I think it takes time to develop players at that level in that country, and developing a base of players that gets you into World Cup. So I don't think we can shorten the cycle of World Cups, because I don't think you're going to develop enough countries to be competitive to go to the World Cup. But I think there's legs to have a Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, sort of European, you know, Super League, if you like. Yeah. A bit like sort of, you know, doing football. Yeah. And then have a Northern Hemisphere sort of
maybe have
playoffs.
I
think that'd be massive.
Yeah,
Champions League, you know.
Yeah. Just on that point where obviously you're talking about the spectrum is just so wide, isn't there, between some of the countries. And football's quite good at taking that product globally, and you know, there's lots of teams who are at a good level, decent level, same level. Why can't they get that quite right with rugby then, by the sounds of it? That they can't get that world rugby product into those countries and build them up quicker?
I'll take an example of America, USA. So my son did a coaching placement in Boston last year, MLR club, and so he's lived there firsthand, and he said there's so much competition for different sports. So take America, for example, so you have baseball, you have American football, basketball is massive as well. So if you look at those other countries, like most of those smaller countries, football is their main sport. And it is massive. So when I go back to when I spent time in New Zealand a few years ago, no football in New Zealand at all. So they do a little bit of hockey, a little bit of cricket in the summer. They do quite a bit of basketball, but it's all rugby. So every town is a rugby town. So everyone's playing rugby. Whereas if you go to those small nations, if you take some of the small nations, everything is football. So if you go to some of those third world countries, you could go to Ghana, it's much easier to have a game of football, for example. You know, I went to Fiji a few years ago. Fiji is just rugby mad. Yeah. They're playing rugby in the streets with Coke cans, and it's just rugby. So that's how Fiji are so successful at rugby, because it's just in their culture is rugby. You don't see them playing a lot of football. There's a little bit of football there, but it's not massive. There's no basketball. There's no other range of sports. So I think that's the challenge. Is, you know, football is global. And it's an easier sport to sort of go and play sort of socially. Rugby, I think, is more difficult with that, because you have different positions,
more technical, I think,
sizes,
is it, from a rule perspective?
Scrums and line-outs. It's more technical. Hard for coaches to do that. Whereas I can organise a game of football. You know, we can organise 10 boys who have a game of 5-side football.
Did you ref it though?
Yeah. So I ref it. Yellow cards about. So don't back chat him. So I think that's the challenge. I think World Rugby are doing a great job at it. If you look at some of the teams that are in the World Cups. And then I watched. I go around watching the sevens circuit, World Sevens, and some of the countries on there have done fantastically well to qualify and be competitive. They've done a fantastic job with women's rugby as well. And it's massive now. Apparently, women's rugby is one of the biggest growth sports in the world now, along with football. So it's been really good to see how it's growing. Doing a good job with it. Yeah,
definitely. I suppose similar to cricket, isn't it, with rugby? There's only certain countries historically who
the pool is small,
got that kind of cricket bug or rugby bug, and then growing outside of that, it takes time to grow it. But rugby, I think, is fine. It's easier than cricket, because you've got countries like America where you got loads of players who don't make the NFL. They can repackage them as rugby players.
Yeah,
potentially.
absolutely. And they've got their own program for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they put World Rugby are pumping a lot of money into that to try and develop that as well. And over there, the club structure is really well financed. So you've got big business people running the clubs over there.
Yeah, I guess it all comes back to money.
Yeah, and a professional. I mean, it does, because you've got to,
Yeah.
at the end, you've got professional players have got to pay mortgages and things, and so the bottom line is you've got to pay players well, but you also got to have coaching structures. You've got to have good medical teams as well, and that costs an awful lot of money to do it properly.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so finish off this section then, this episode. Talk about Wales Australia tour, and then the Six Nations predictions from you 2025.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that the youngsters go to Australia. I think it's a really good idea to go to Australia rather than go to South Africa. It's quite tough over in South Africa, even standing below with the regional rugby. I think Australia is probably a little more faster, more skillful game. So I think it'll be an easier transition for some of the younger players to have that international experience. They're playing Queensland as well, so they're going to get a lot of rugby over there. They're going to be together for a month, 6 weeks, training together. So I think they'll get growth as a team and as a coaching unit.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be a really great experience for those players. And coming back into the autumn internationals, I think it'll give them momentum into those autumn internationals. Playing at home, having a home advantage, having been away for maybe a month, 6 weeks to Australia. They'll come back psychologically a little bit stronger as young players. I think the key will be the autumn internationals. I think that's going to be a good yardstick for us. We usually start really slow and struggle and then get better towards the game 3 and 4. I think if we can do really well in game 3 and 4 in the autumn internationals, we got momentum going then. And then you got momentum into the Six Nations. I think performance is the key. I think, everybody talks about results tonight. Internationally, you want to win games. You've got to win games. But I think you've got to perform well to win games. To do that, I think the older players have got to help the younger players, again, do well in those moments. If they can do well in those moments and they'll perform well, if they perform well, they win those line-outs, those big line-outs. Lose a lot of set-piece ball at the moment. Line-outs especially. I think some boys lost some line-out ball yesterday. If you can win those big moments of line-outs and then score for those line-outs, I think that you can turn those narrow losses into wins.
Yeah.
I say winning becomes a habit, doesn't it? If you can just get over the line, learn how to win. I don't think you can take much from a loss. Personally, I always think you learn how to win a game.
Yeah, and you got momentum off that. Yeah, so you learn from those big moments. So those big moments go wrong for you. You learn more from losses than you do from wins. So you scrutinise yourself much harder when you lose games. So I want players and coaches to come up with ideas to problem solve, to get over those problems of why we're losing and change things. Things aren't working, change it. And that's a process as well, going through as a coaches and a playing unit. So I think it'd be really good to see those players, one, have those real tough moments in Australia, hopefully, and then take those learnings into autumn internationals, and then hopefully, get some wins there. I think it won't be the end of the world if we don't beat Australia. Great if we do beat Australia over there and win the test matches, but I don't think that'll be the real test. The real test will be the autumn internationals. Playing those big teams in the autumn internationals at home, and then into the Six Nations, and hopefully those boys will play for the Lions as well. So that's another great experience for them as well.
So if we start say, what would be a good Six Nations for Wales? Where would they finish? What would your prediction be for Wales?
I think first of all, performance-wise, about performance and then winning is finding that pack that can deliver those big moments of set piece. So having parity at scrum time, so we can get the ball out and get on the front foot with our back row number 8 and the backs. Having those moments in the line out. So if you win a set piece ball and get front foot ball off your set piece, much easier to play and then put pressure on your opponents and have those positive moments, and then having those positive moments, scoring points, winning games. I think if we can perform well, we got some tough games. There's some big games, Six Nations. I think if we can win some of those tough games that are close and have two wins out of maybe 3 wins out of 5, I think that'll be real positive for us. Because we lost a couple of tight games this year, and a couple of bad moments. So I think we can turn those moments around. I think we'll win 3 games. If we win 3 games, I think that'll be a positive for us.
It seems to me when watching, when it's a close game, as soon as it gets to the hour mark, there's something about the hour mark in the rugby game where it goes into that last 20 minutes, and then usually you start seeing the better side either pull away or, the final decision. Is that just purely down to tiredness and just fatigue hitting in, or
both fatigue, fatigue and experiences? I'm not talking about experience of older players, but experiences of being in those moments.
Yeah.
Because if you're not experienced at being in those moments, high pressure moments that happen really, really quickly, your brain will sometimes make a bad decision, and you'll do something you've probably never done before. I've been in those moments, and I've done things that I've never ever did again because you haven't been in those pressure moments. So you've got to try and it's your brain will control your body in those pressure moments. So you've got to practice. You've got to have purposeful, pressurized practice. So when your brain gets into those pressure moments, it's been there before and understands what's the best thing to do in those moments, not to try and maybe make a rash decision. And the only way you can be exposed to that is by training that way, which is really difficult to replicate. Right? Because replicating international rugby and training is really hard because it's physical and it's demanding. And then exposing those boys in enough matches to understand when in those moments, when they come back maybe in 6 days from Australia or the autumn internationals, I've been in this situation before, what's the best thing to do in this situation?
Yeah, and another thing that I'd like to ask you about is sometimes I've seen Wales do this a lot, is it'd be about the last 90 seconds of the game, and instead of trying to hold on to possession, they'll just kick it, and they just be like, just get it, play for the yardage and possession. What is kind of the theory behind that? Because to me, it makes more sense to hold on to the ball, run the clock down, and if you do fumble or pass, at least it's on your passing rather than you're giving someone another opportunity. And Wales tend to do that. Is that just pressure?
No, it's across most teams. It's I did nutrition analysis at my degree, so you see a lot of data now from you get data on everything now. There's data out there from international matches going back the last cycle of 4 years where actually the team that kicks the most is more likely to win the game.
Oh, okay.
And the team that kicks 50% of the time out to their own half will win more games. And it's been stats-wise, you'll see that international games are won more without the ball. The team that defends more wins the most turnovers and will win the breakdown battle. So it's actually easier to win international rugby matches not having the ball in your own half. And what teams will do, and you'll see a lot out of their own half more, is they might go 3 phases, and the data will tell you, okay, you could go 3 phases. 3 phases is the magic number. If you're not breaking gain or getting into the opposing half within 3 phases, you kick it.
So that is something that's briefed to or maybe the stats are out there and the players are taking and like, right, we've been through 3 phases, we need to just get rid of it now. Yeah,
and then it's easier because they'll set. You'll see, for example, and a lot of people won't understand it, that they'll set up a play where if there's a breakdown just outside their 22 and they're on, for example, the 15-meter line, what they'll do is they'll do an extra phase of 3 forwards to go closer to the touchline. So they can just set up a box kick exit, and then the scrum half will box kick exit. So there'll be a wider line across the field, so there's less space on the field for the opposing team to attack. So the attacking team then get the ball closer to the touchline. So they can't try and push them in a touch to get the ball back. So they won't kick midfield because it's hard to defend midfield because you can attack both sides of the ball. You can kick left or right, which is hard to defend. So you're trying to manipulate teams to attack from a certain area so you can get your defensive line and then kick chase.
Yeah, that's an interesting stats there. So you're basically giving the opposition the ball and forcing the error from them. And that's where you get your points.
Because there's statistically less errors that can happen. The more errors happening in attack than defence. So it's much harder to attack than is defence. So it's a much harder job for an attack coach is to get players up to a level where they don't make mistakes under pressure, whereas defence coaches, it's much easier to organise a defensive line and to get them organised with equal space under coming line speed. Get a fly and put attacking teams under pressure. And you'll see a lot of that in the top teams.
Are you a fan of data? Because there's, like you say, there's so much data out there. I mean, there's some people say the game doesn't change, the game's the game, but you layer data upon data upon data.
Yeah, I'm careful with data. I'm careful with stats. I'm sort of more of a video analysis type of coach, player.
Actually watching the game.
Yeah, so what I'll do, being an attack coach, so I'll look at, for example, an easy one for me is, so we try and go wide against a team, and we'll try and cut the team up wide, so 13 channel. There'll be a breakdown, and then I'll time how long it takes the defence to reload. So the defenders that are involved in the tackle area, how long it'll take them to get off their feet and back into defensive position. So being a bit sad and a bit of a starter, I timed it was 6 seconds. Yeah. So I'll get my team, my players then in that breakdown reload in 4 seconds. Okay. And we got an extra 2 seconds to attack that back on that blind side. Okay. So yes, we can attack in 4 seconds. Yeah, 1 or 2 of them still on the floor. So it's just, and that's the good use of data.
So like 1% gains really, if you like. Trying to get those.
100%. So I'll present that to the players and say, right, this is where we've got an opportunity to attack. Yeah. Stats wise, if you look at, how many teams carry, how many percentage of territory, percentage of possession. I'm not massively into that because for me those aren't really key moments. Like I saw the stats yesterday from the Wales game. I think Wales game had 57% territory, but still lost the game by 40 points. So I think you've got to be careful with stats and what you look at and what stats you gather. Yeah. If it's stats that gather help you move performance forward and the players understand how to perform. Brilliant.
It sounds like you're using that data in a really specific situation.
Yeah.
Really specific data set, whereas, it's general data.
Yeah, you want to get the messages across to the players as concise as possible. Then you short message.
Yeah. This is and you can model that. So if you take Ireland, for example, you can model their kicking game. So, for example, I can watch back of 3 Ireland games and I'll model each kick. So who kicked the ball, what position, outside half, scrum half, for example, and then I'll model what type of kicks you put in. So it'll be grubbers, box kicks, long punt kicks, and where they kick in the field as well. So if I can model 3 games and pick out any trends, then I can model my back 3 to cover certain areas of the field against Ireland, for example, against France, or against where they're most likely to kick the ball, and how are they more likely to kick the ball, along the floor, how we're going to counter-attack off that, and you can work on that in training in the week.
And that's it for that episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Remember to like and subscribe, and have a world-class weekend.